Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Catholic ReCon Testimonies from Reverts and Converts. I'm your host, Eddie Trask. Please subscribe to this channel. Please share this channel and comment and like and all those things. This week's guest hails from Argentina. This is Fatima Mosca. Welcome, Fatima, to the show.
Thank you, Eddie.
It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad that the time zone difference worked out for us. And
Perfectly.
yeah, and we were just talking about right before I hit record, Saint Mama Antula, who was the first female saint from Argentina. She was canonized in February, I believe. And I
Yes.
think the only canonization that was scheduled for this year. Maybe Carlo Acutis is going to be canonized this year. I'm not sure.
Probably
Yeah,
soon now. Yeah.
pretty soon. Yeah. The
Mhm.
reason I mention her is not just the fact that you're from Argentina, but what's interesting to me is that her life was so filled with virtue. And I think I heard this part of the story where the bishop in Buenos Aires or somewhere in that vicinity saw that she was so discerning that he would send seminarians to her so that she could basically get a read on them. Like, are they fit to be priests? I don't know why we're starting there, but is there anything that stands out to you in that story? Is that true? First of all, do you know the story of Mama Antula?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she was like all for the spiritual exercises of San Ignacio de Loyola.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that she had a lot of virtues of discernment, and she was a big woman for the time. I mean, she could gather like poor and rich women all together to spend a week of spiritual exercises, for example. So that wasn't a common thing on that time, and yeah, she was a great saint. But I have to say that I didn't know her before she was canonized because she wasn't like very famous, or maybe it's because I was only on the Catholic faith for a year, so maybe yeah,
Very
uh,
new. Yeah, I get that.
exactly, yeah.
So, well, thanks for sharing what you do know. Yeah, and I think she was in the 1700s for those of you that are interested again about her full name, Maria Antonia de Paz y Figueroa, and she was born in, yeah, 1730. Anyway,
Yes.
Fatima, thank you so much for being here. Let's go to the beginning. How were you raised? Did you have a religious background?
Yes, I did. I was born into a very Catholic family. My mom, my dad, and well, I have two siblings that happen to be pretty much older than me. So I wasn't really planned. I came like a surprise. Um, and I was very spoiled, if I have to say. But my family was very loving, and we would go to mass every Sunday. I happened to have two grandmas that were very pious. They would go to daily mass and pray the rosary every day. So I learned my prayers from them, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. I also went to a Catholic school, and I was taught about faith since I was 4 years old. It was a Marist school. I don't know if you know the congregation,
I think I
Marist.
do. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and from my 4 years old till I was 18. So I had like a pretty good base on the Catholic doctrine, if you may say. But then, of course, well, after you listen my whole story, you're gonna find out that it wasn't that strong, actually. Um, so yeah, and growing up, I liked very much the life of faith. You know, they didn't have to make me go to church.
Mhm.
I would go on my own sometimes. I mean, my parents maybe they couldn't make it to go with me, so I had to go on my own, and I would walk to the church, and I loved it. And growing up, I remember I was very into like Jesus, and very interested in like in reading the Bible, and I was into faith. It's not like I was rejecting it
Mm.
or I wasn't interested. Also, maybe when I was like to 15 or 6, 17, maybe we would participate in a lot of young groups that would help in neighborhoods, like in the yeah, in this town. My hometown is kind of like small, but it has several neighborhoods that have a lot of needs, material needs and stuff. So we would go and help them out. I would participate in those activities with joy. I was very into it. It's not like someone had to make me or force me to. So when I was growing up, and then I had this very big problem of acne. So it had like a very big impact in my face, and
Oh,
it
like teenage
changed.
years?
Yeah, exactly. Purity
Yeah.
going on, and I felt very bad because I was kind of bullied and I couldn't handle it, and I didn't have the tools to deal with it. So it affected me a lot, my perception of myself, and yeah, my self-esteem and all of those things. So it was a very big thing for me. I was 16, I was small, I was a young person, and yeah. So then eventually, when I had to, when that went away, when my skin got better and stuff, I gained back a little confidence and trust again. Also, that came along with the very first night outs and stuff. So that's when the things started to get a little bit messy. Till then, everything was great. I mean, I was dealing with normal teenage things, but nothing further, nothing dark. I mean, I was very obedient. I would never go against my parents' will. I would never lie to them. I would never sneak out of my house to go anywhere. I was very, very obedient girl. But then, this is a small town, so whenever you have to study in the university, you leave for college. Kids here have to travel, have to go and live to another cities in the country. So that's what I did. And I moved to a city named Cordoba, that's like 200 kilometers away from this. And back those days, I mean, I was extremely happy because I was super cool, super okay with the idea of leaving my parents' house, all the control, everything. I was like, yes, freedom. And well, that went okay. Like for the first 2 years, I could like keep track on being a Catholic, and
Yep.
still going to mass, and living under, yeah, the Catholic faith. Maybe not very strongly, but I was trying. And then, living very alone, away from my parents, and with no control. Also, like college, you know how it is that they try to uh, present all these ideas of, yeah, the Catholic Church sucks, and it's like, if you don't have a strong education about it, and if you don't, um, you know, and if you weren't very sure about your ideals, then that's gonna like fall apart, and that's what happened with me. Of course, this didn't happen from one day to another. It was a very, very slow transition,
Okay.
you know. So eventually, I stopped going to confession, and then I was like falling into, well, drinking a lot of alcohol, a lot of promiscuity. I was sleeping around a lot, and that was like a situation that went way out of control, and I couldn't handle it anymore. And I was like 20 when that happened. So I went from home. I went away when I was 18, and then 2 years I could be like okay on track in Catholic faith, but then it came a point where I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go to church anymore because I can't sustain my faith anymore. I don't believe this anymore. I don't like going to confession. All those things that probably go through young people minds sometime.
Well, and I was going to say it probably snowballs because you say, I'm
Yeah,
not going to go to confession.
exactly.
You're leaving the grace alone. And then as you sin, you're less inclined. In many instances, you're less and less and less inclined to go back to confession because the shame and the guilt. And then you say, well, I
Exactly.
just don't believe in it anymore. That's how you convince yourself that you're in control. But go ahead. You were saying.
Exactly. I was like, okay, I cannot be fixed anymore,
Yep.
and I'm just gonna stick with this. So I forgot completely who I was. I mean, I started to behave like if I hadn't known God ever. Also, I mean, it was not just about the sexual disorder, but like I was being very rude to people. I was starting to have these ideas of like, it's okay that some people, maybe in poor countries, they die because they have less possibilities than us. So I was starting to have all those horrible ideas. Uh, Zero charity, zero love for anybody, zero nothing. Um, and then also I had very clear spiritual warfare signs. I started having sleep paralysis a lot, and those weren't normal at all. I was googling a lot. I was googling a lot, but then I couldn't explain what was going on with me. I was seeing demons in those sleep paralysis, and I kind of like knew something was off. But then I was trying to convince myself, okay, this is happening to people, so it's okay. I'm gonna, just pretend it didn't happen. But it was awful. In those experiences, I saw, as I told you, these demons, and I remember seeing also Jesus and Mary there. They were like, on my by my side, trying to maybe defend me or be present there for me. Also, I started having a lot of suicidal thoughts. It's not like I planned to kill myself or anything, but I was all the time constantly thinking, why do I exist? Why was I ever born? Life doesn't have any meaning. I don't want to live like this. And well, that went on a lot of time because I was like neglecting everything. I was going to the gym a lot, so I was training and I tried to keep my body on like very good shape and all like my uh, my image was one thing, but on the inside I was falling apart completely. And I had these two phases also because academically I was trying to be perfect all the time, the perfect grades, never failing a test. But I mean, my personal life was an absolute disaster. And nobody knew about that. Nobody knew about it like profoundly. My parents probably, they never found out what was I doing and the way I was living. It was out of control. I cannot explain really why did I choose to do that. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's because I was aiming to affection and to maybe attention from men. And the only way I could get it, I thought, was like giving away myself on one night stands or things like that. And of course, it's something that would never fill me, would never fulfill my needs or yeah, my emotional needs. And it's kind of weird because all along, all I wanted was to be loved, to have a relationship, to have a traditional life. I even remember, maybe picking up guys, maybe if because they were Catholic, or it was crazy because it made no sense. But like in my heart, deep in my heart, I really wanted to have a profound relationship, and to be a good person. It's just that I was so selfish and so sober that I couldn't take yeah, that I needed help, you know.
So how many years did this happen? And you mentioned kind of two phases. So you're at university, you're
A lot of
smiling,
years.
everything's great. You're going through sleep paralysis. You're having trouble with, again, wanting attention in the wrong ways, all that stuff. Like
Yeah,
past college, did this go on for? And
a lot
that's
of
not to say
years.
that all those things were happening for that many years, because I know that there are stages to it. But sleep paralysis, that can last for quite a while, from what I have
That's
heard.
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I started chemical engineering and I studied it for 2 years, and then
Okay.
I switched to architecture. I'm an architect. So, if you say like 6 years of architecture plus the other 2 years, it's 8 years. And then you have to add 12 years. 12 years of my life
Wow.
living like in the most mundane way possible. Yeah, it was horrible. And I mean, in this life that I was living, there were some times that I had these nostalgic feelings of maybe going to mass on Sunday, and I liked it, but or maybe sometimes I even tried to go to confession. But when it was my time to confess, I was like, no, I can't do this,
Wow.
and I would back down, and yeah. And I remember all the time, this nostalgic of going to mass, of participating. Of course, my parents never abandoned their faith, so they would always tell me, "Hey, why don't you come back to church? Um, why don't you go to mass anymore?" And all those things. And I was like, "That's stupid. I don't want to do that anymore." And yeah, I was absolutely against it. Like I became very anti-clerical,
Mm.
and also started to take all these New Age ideas. New Age, yes.
Yeah.
So, for example, Buddhism or things like that. It's not like I became very profound on it because I didn't ever, I didn't even practice any of those things, but they were changing my thoughts, like
Worldview.
my life philosophy, and yeah, the way that I saw the world. So, for example, I would believe that there was a reincarnation, or that there were another lives, past lives, for example, the karma thing. All of that, I bought it all, and I would believe in it. It's like I had forgotten about Jesus completely, and about him, I thought, okay, Jesus is great, but then you have Buddha that then probably was a great guy too,
Mhm.
I forgot about who Jesus actually was. And of course, I started doubting about a lot of faith things, like I stopped believing that Jesus was God, or that Mary ever existed, or things like that. So yeah,
You put
completely
everyone
off.
kind of on equal footing. All these,
Exactly.
yeah, all these other religious figures, let's say. Yeah.
Exactly. And for example, I would try to do meditation, or how do you call that? Manifest?
Oh, okay. Yeah, more like I think that gets into the occult.
Probably,
I think this
yeah.
all merges together. I don't know all the thresholds of where, where something ends and another thing begins. I just know that that's some serious stuff for sure. And
Yeah,
you said you
pretty
were
pretty
trying it,
bad.
so you're just so lost. You're just looking like, "Oh, what about this, right? What about
Yeah.
this? Let
I
me
was
check this
trying to
out."
experience
Every
everything but Catholic Church. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
this is not truth. And yeah, I wouldn't even consider it as a possibility to go back to. I was trying to experience anything else but Catholic Church. And because it's like nowadays they sell you that it's out of fashion, like it's not cool to be a Catholic anymore, or and they would believe such a nonsense. Like, you have to even have more faith to believe in reincarnation rather than believing that Jesus is God. I mean, it's so silly, but people are deceived in so many ways. And well, I didn't escape that reality. So, as I told you, I lived like that for 12 long years. All along, I was in Cordoba, the city that I moved to. So I hadn't came back to my hometown for those 12 years. After I graduated, I went to live in Milan, and I lived there for 3 months. And I was supposed to come back to Argentina, but something happened, and I decided to move to Copenhagen in Denmark. And there is where things kind of like started to change
Let me
for
ask
me.
you this, just if I may. What year was that, so we get some context?
It was previous to the pandemic at
Oh,
2020.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not too long ago. Yeah. So, well, in Copenhagen, it's not like I converted or anything, but I started to have this like preference for a quieter life. Going by bike everywhere and having a quiet and clean city to live in. Like the place I studied, the city I studied, where it was very uh, dirty and filthy, and it was horrible. It's not a very healthy place to live. So I started to like this lifestyle of quietness and peace, if you may say. And also seeing the Danish girls dressing like more modestly, that kind of like had an impact in me, because here in South America it's very common that girls don't dress very modestly. The fashion here is like you wear everything tight, you're showing everything, like, and I was very into that. And also that started to change. Back then I didn't really know what was going on because I was changing my decisions, but now I happen to know that it was Mother Mary's grace in my life. I mean, I completely know she was pulling me back to Jesus, like with these tiny little things that I started to change in me. I didn't abandon my lifestyle completely, but at least I was trying to aim to a different kind of life, or at least have a little more dignity in some other areas of my life. Then I spent a year in Copenhagen, and well, I had to come back to Argentina. And instead of picking, like, again, choosing again the city of where I studied at, Cordoba, I chose to live in my hometown again, something that I would have never imagined, because I always hated my city. I mean, I always hated it here because I always thought it was boring and there was nothing to do. And all of a sudden, I found it peaceful and quiet, like Copenhagen, and I could bike everywhere. So I was like cool with the idea of living here, and that's why I moved back here. And also, my parents live here, my sister, my niece, my nephew. I have family, so that was kind of nice. And suddenly my relationship with my parents started to get better. I didn't get along with them. We would have a lot of conflict, and I would always blame them for everything in my life. And all of a sudden I realized that they were incredible people, and that I wanted to spend time with them because they were hilarious, and I didn't want to miss out on them, you know. So yeah, that started to take place in my life, and I was very, very happy living here. I even moved to one of my grandma's house. It's this house where I'm at right now. Um, so I always say that that has a very big part in my conversion because she was um, she was a part of a group of ladies that would pray the rosary every day, and then masses would take place in this house too, sometimes, you know, not all the time. Yeah. So I think it's kind of like a very holy place. And first, when I moved here, many of her staff were here still. Uh, Many of her religious images. And the first thing that I did when I moved here was like, okay, I'm gonna put this in a cabinet or something.
Sure.
I don't want to see this. Um, and then, I mean, I remember one day I opened the door from the street. I opened the door, and I don't know why one of the cabinets door was open, and I could see a crucifix. It showed up there. I had put it there to hide it, to never see it anymore. And one day I opened the door and I saw that. And I was like, okay, this probably means something. So I took it out and I placed it in a place where I could see it every day. And things like that were, you know, taking place, and they started to change. Um, I was still practicing a lot of this dumb stuff from New Age things, like, for example, charging crystals with the moon. So silly and so stupid. But I was doing that, you know. Whenever it was full moon, I was taking my crystals to the terrace. And yeah, so stupid. And also, I started to go to mass again because I felt like it was a nice thing to do with my parents, you know, and with my sister. But I didn't do it all the time. It was whenever I wanted. Then, in that, yeah, that was 2022, I think, or 21. Yeah. So I had this personal issue that kind of like had me exposed into my past life, and I was so ashamed, and I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with my past. I always felt like my past somehow didn't belong to me, and when I looked back, I couldn't see myself doing all those things because, you know, I didn't ever wanted to do those things, but it's just the outcome of my decisions, if you know what I mean. But I had done it. And well, I had to deal with it, and I didn't know how to cope with it anymore. So my first idea was like, okay, I need to go to church and I need to go to confession. That was an Immaculate Conception Day, the 8th of December. And that confession actually wasn't very sincere, because I wasn't, you know, profoundly repented, like from my past life. All I wanted was God to wipe out everything I had done, to take it away from me, and, like, you know, pretend it never happened and that it never existed. And after that confession, I started to go to mass a little bit more and more. I didn't go every Sunday. Um, I didn't attend every Sunday mass because I didn't know it was important. And I recall that I was doing it just because I like to see my siblings there. Well, actually, only my sister, my parents, my niece, my nephew, and to dress up a little bit because it was I could wear clothes there that I couldn't use to a bar, to a club. So I really enjoyed, like, being dressed for the occasion, and you know, the feeling of being part of something. That's what I loved about going to mass. But that was it. I mean, I was just doing it for my personal purposes, and like in a very selfish way. Then after that, I remember I remember that from my past years when I was a better Christian, when I was a little girl, every time that, for example, I don't know, Christmas Day came along, I was like unprepared for it, and I remember regretting to be unprepared for the celebration. And some voice or something told me, okay, Fatima, Lent is coming. You have to prepare for this. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna prepare for this because I don't want to be unprepared for this Easter. And that's what I did. And my big preparation was like, okay, I'm gonna pray an Our Father a day or things like that. Very, very basic and very the bare minimum. I mean, I'm sorry for my English. I'm finding it very hard to
No,
find the
you're
word.
yeah. Like I said before we hit record, I wish I was bilingual. That would You're
Oh,
doing a
I'm
fantastic job.
I'm okay. Thank you. I'm
It's
sorry if I
making
sound
perfect sense. I always ask people about what year. That's the only thing I needed context for. So,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then Ash Wednesday came along, and I went to mass because I was like, okay, I'm preparing for this. I need to go to mass. I did the cue to get the Ash in position, and then the words convert and believe in the gospel were said to me. Um, and then I remember coming back home and looking myself in the mirror, and I don't know, I was completely shocked or mesmerized with the feeling, being part of something big. um, I don't know how to explain it. I even had to take a video of it because I felt great. It was, I don't know, I had never felt that before, but I felt loved and I felt part of something. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I like these ashes. But it's something that I had already done
Done.
in my life. I mean, it wasn't something weird. I went to mass every year of my life since I was born till I was 18 or 20 probably. So that happened, and then uh, yeah, the Holy Friday came along, and I remember that day all the tales that my grannies used to tell me about how they would dress in black that day, or they wouldn't listen to the radio, they would only listen to sacred music, all the preparations that they would do. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the same as my grandma's. And I remember I googled holy music or something like that in Google, and then I played that music all day long. Now I know it's Gregorian chants. I am absolutely in love with Gregorian chants. I cannot even stop listening to that. Back in my formal life, I would listen to any kind of music like rock, I don't know, Led Zeppelin or Alabama Shakes, but I had a very big mix of music that I would choose. And now I don't even find it good anymore. I mean, I just go along with Gregorian chants all day long,
That's
probably.
great.
So yeah, that happened, and then it was about to be 3 p.m., the time that Jesus Christ died. So I remember I kneeled down and I did a prayer. I don't even remember what I told Jesus back then. I mean, but that's what I did. I kneeled down. It was like nothing. Now that I see it, it was the bare minimum. Well, then Easter Sunday happened, and we had a visit from some relatives that I wouldn't take very much in consideration before because they were very practicing Catholics. So I wouldn't find I wasn't very fond of them actually. I Whenever they visited, I was like, oh, again, I don't want them to visit. But then after that, that Holy Friday, I was like very excited with the idea of them visiting, and I was like very happy to receive them. And well, they went to my mom's house, and we had like uh, the Easter meal there. They would recommend me a lot of videos, a lot of books about faith and everything, and I was very happy and jolly to have them, and yeah, they would tell me about two women, that mystic women. I don't know if that's a
Sure.
word.
Yep.
Maria Sima and then Catalina Rivas. Two women that are mystics, and they had these experiences of purgatory, and they could get to see what happens actually in a mass. So okay, they went away, and the week started. I wasn't employed back then because I had quitted my job recently, and I was doing some hobbies for, yeah, to occupy myself. And while I was doing this, yeah, everyday jobs that I found for myself, I would play these videos on the background. I probably wasn't paying that much attention to them, but I was listening, and I was, yeah, very, very concentrated. I have to say here that in all those years that I was completely lost in the world, my mom would try every day to send videos of, sermons or priest trying to explain some doctrine, or yeah, anything, and I would reject it, yeah, high time, because I didn't want to have anything to do with the church anymore. And I would always doubt about the things I heard, or I would mock priests, or yeah, I was very yeah, I was very rejective about that. And this time, the different thing that happened was like I took it in, it wasn't like I had to doubt about it or had to reject that idea. As I was listening, I knew that what I was listening to was the truth. It's weird to explain, but that's what happened. So, listening about the purgatory, something that I had completely forgotten or stopped believing about, then about what happens in the mass, and the lady would talk about how how you have to offer things, or what happens actually in the Eucharist. And I was like, that's happening in the mass. I couldn't believe it. And after those videos ended, I was like, I need to see more. So I started to search podcasts and testimonies, and I would listen to the life of saints, and several stories of conversions. And, I couldn't stop listening because I had this thirst, this huge thirst. And, till the days went by, and I knew till one day, I woke up, and one day I knew that God was real, that He created me, that He loved me very highly, that I was His child. So I was like, my parents' God is true. I couldn't deny it anymore. Um, and I was like, okay, I need to go to confession this time. And I mean, there was this voice trying to convince me not to, because I had already had a confession in Christmas time. So I was like, okay, it hasn't been a year yet. I don't need to go to confession again. But something was like, okay, no, you need to go to confession. You need to go to confession. And I didn't hold it back any longer. I went to church as fast as I could. A mass was ending at the time, and the priest came along with the Holy Sacrament, and then the Holy Hour started. Actually, it was 2 hours of Holy Hour, and I waited him. He came back, and I asked him, can I confess? It was like, I cannot explain that what happened. I mean, it was a great experience. I always say that confessions are kind of exorcistic, actually. I had to fight my own body to speak it out. to tell everything. My jaw was like stiff, and I couldn't get it to actually speak. I was shaking. I was very cold, but I was strong because there was something that was helping me. Of course, it was God. So I could end the confession, and I felt so relieved. Like I went to my house like floating in a cloud, and yeah, and that was the happiest thing that I had experienced in long years of being lost in the world. Um,
When was that?
so
When was that?
that was the wait, I have to think it in English. The Sacred Heart of Jesus Day from last year.
From
I don't know
last
how you
year.
say that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No. Yeah, well, by the time this comes out, it'll be long gone. But yeah,
Okay.
we just celebrated
I
the Sacred
know,
Heart
I
of
know.
Jesus. Yeah.
So I was very happy because it was like a year after my confession. And yes, it was that day. It was very special. I didn't know it back then, but then I realized that it was on the same day.
Beautiful.
And of course, it's a big sign for me, like a welcoming to his heart again. And yeah, I cannot live a day without praying, or I don't know. I don't want to miss out on everything like I did before. So I want to catch up all the time that I lost, and I want to speak about Jesus and what he did in my life to everybody. I mean, I want to shout it out like to every person I meet. Um, and well, it's been a little more than a year, and well, the feeling is still very high. I'm very happy. I don't know. I just want people to know Jesus, because I know what is living in the darkness. You don't actually want to live in the darkness. You are there because you choose to be there, but you don't actually know what it is like before you choose to be there. I mean, I wouldn't go back there. I ask and I pray, Jesus, please don't ever let me go again, because living in that way is so I don't know, confusing, and we are not created for that darkness. We are created for this plenitude, for this happiness, for this love, feeling everything in us. That's why I wanted to give this testimony. I already gave it in Spanish. I think it sounded much better. I'm sorry. Um,
This
but
is
it's just,
beautiful. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
it's just that I was that young person lost, as many other young people now is lost. And I get it. I mean, I know what it is like to want to fulfill yourself, to find a meaning for your life in whatever there is out there. And the world trying to sell you that having a lot of sex is okay, that being promiscuous is going to make you happy, that you get to do whatever you like, and that is the actual freedom. And I was never a more a slave that back those days. I mean, now I am free.
Yep.
Exactly. And yeah, I wanted to bring out this testimony, so if anybody that maybe needs to listen to it, maybe they could you know uh, get to know what God can do for them actually. And when I was lost, I remember always thinking, okay, church is not for me anymore, because now I can't fix myself anymore. I felt like very filthy or not pure enough to be close to God. And that's so wrong, because God's here for people that's wrecked, that's
Free.
broken.
Yes.
Exactly. So I wish that someone had told me back then, hey, he doesn't expect you to be perfect. he wants you like that. I mean, and then your life is gonna change. So to all the young people out there that think that their lives are a waste or that they cannot get it back or that they had done irreversible things,
Yep.
there is even more than hope. I mean,
Oh,
he
yeah.
can do anything
Anything.
again,
Yes. Yes.
again. I mean, for real. Uh, all the wounds that you probably have, they're gonna go away. Uh, but only he can do that,
That's
not
right.
any shaman or things like that.
That's
That's not
right.
gonna fix anything.
That's
I
right.
mean, I'm telling you, I tried that and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I thank you, Fatima. It's so true. And it's great that you were at that stage where you're trying everything you said. You're looking everywhere, anywhere but the Catholic Church. And now you're in the Catholic Church and you're saying, I want to, I think you were saying like explore the depths. So now you can do it on the right side. You can go,
I know.
you have the freedom now, the true freedom to explore the depths of truth. But before
Exactly.
you're scrambling, claiming probably somewhere that you're looking for truth and just coming up empty-handed. The other thing is, I just heard this from a buddy today, I think. He said that God has 10 commandments and Satan only has one. And Satan's commandment is do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yep. And it is,
Disobey.
it's a command. And then millions upon millions, billions are saying, okay, yeah, that seems like the right path. Um, but as you said, we're not made for the
No.
darkness. And yet the deception is in that darkness, you somehow think, or you have to convince yourself that there is joy in absolutely no boundaries, in absolutely no moral code, but it's just chaos. And I
Yeah.
saw in you, and I think we talked about this before we hit record, and this theme, I will say it, I don't care how many times I say it, the humility and the courage that it takes. So when you're saying that someone, a lot of people feel like they're too far gone. Well, you can pray for humility and
Yeah.
courage, and the courage to be able to say, as you persevered through that confession where your jaw is tight and you say, no, I'm going to do like it says in Ephesians and shine a light on the darkness.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that is what we need. And the courage that it takes for you to share this is unbelievable. And yeah, I'm just very, very privileged to have heard it. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for having me, for giving me this space to reach out more people that probably need this. You know,
Yes.
it's incredible because actually God, it's like He planned something for me. You know, like I'm very picky about everything, and I find it cringe. Like many things, I found it. For example, I would never be a charismatic uh, person from the Church of the Charismatics. I don't
Sure.
like clapping and, you know, that's not for me. I'm more like for the traditional thing. So here in Latin America, the church is like all about the guitar and about the lights. We're like more Protestants here because
Okay.
of a very big tragedy that happened with the theology of liberation back in the
Uh,
60s. I don't know
yeah,
if you've heard about it,
I have.
but
Yes.
okay, yeah, it's still a lot around. So I didn't quite like, you know, the songs that were played in church and everything. But then I was like uh, brought back by the tradition and about, you know, the beauty of yeah, of the tradition of church. I don't have a Latin mass here in my hometown, but I wish I had. I already have my veils. They were from my grandma's. You know, like it was maybe the way that God thought for me to make me fall in love with Him again. I don't know how to put it out there,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, He thought of a way to making me fall in love again with Him, and that was beautiful. And every time I think about it, I am like, I love him more and more. um how he is so subtle about these things, and he's so thoughtful, and I don't know, he's the best.
Well,
I
and,
am I am in
your
love with
joy,
him.
is so amazing, and I can tell that as you get closer to God, this is just a fact. As you get closer and closer to our Lord, the other things are bitter to you. You know, how you were talking about the music. You know, all these things, they just fall. They just fall. That's not to say everything is evil. That doesn't come, that's not directly connected to the church. I'm not talking about some
No, no.
fundamental viewpoint. But what I'm saying is those things that potentially were you couldn't live without them. Like now they're so secondary,
They're dust.
almost non-existent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I pray every day for the conversion of the young, and I am hopeful because I lived through it. So, like, well, my brother actually is very away from faith. He's very, yeah, cold about it, and he believes in all these Buddhist kind of things.
Okay.
So I am my mother, she's like very negative about it, but I am so, hopeful
Hopeful.
that he is actually gonna convert, because it's like I know where I was. I know what I thought, like I know what I lived through. I know the things I've done. And then God made everything new for me. I mean, that's so beautiful. And I have hope for everybody. I mean,
Yes.
everybody can convert.
Yes. That's
It's
so,
something that,
so powerful. Yeah,
yeah.
I hope that potentially this video, other channels will see this so that you can share this far and wide. I really, um, it's really special just to see that and to bring that hope, and to say that if we are all of equal dignity, all created by the Father, okay, well, why would anyone be out of his reach? It's just not true. There's no
Mhm.
theology that says that you are too far gone. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I
Hmm.
think that your message is very important and it's appreciated. So I want to thank you. Is there anything else you want to, is there anything you want to end with? Go.
Yes.
Yes.
A little piece of advice
Yeah.
to all the parents that have little children or probably adolescent children, well, sons or daughters. Please make them have a personal relationship with Jesus. Don't let them be all about like helping people or maybe only going to mass. Make them, I don't know, pray the rosary every day. Make them go to a holy hour. Make them know that Jesus is God, and don't trust the education that they probably get in the Catholic schools. Probably it's fine, but it's never going to be enough. It's always going to take like a little bit more of participation of a family, have prayer time together, and get in touch with God. Because I mean, growing up, I was close to him in a way, but probably not that deep enough. And maybe, who knows, if I had had a more profound relationship with him, maybe I wouldn't have been so lost. So please help your kids build a relationship with Jesus. Then probably they're going to be strong enough to give battle to evil and to make the right choices and to defend their faith against all these ideologies and these things that they're probably going to try to sell them out in college years.
Yes.
And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Fatima. God bless you. Really, again, appreciate the courage that it takes to share that. And now to see the joy. It's beautiful. Everyone, please share this testimony. As I say about every other testimony, these are so vital for so many people. And we need to make the world understand that these Catholic Christian testimonies show the heart of the father, the love of the father for his children, and we're seeing so many. You can't group. I mean, sometimes I group certain things together based on themes, but each person is so different. Their stories are so different. Please just pray. Please always pray for
Mhm.
people like Fatima that are reaching out, and for all of those that are on the road right now. Some people watch these videos and they're anti-Catholic. And in 2 years, I pray that I will be interviewing them. So with that, take care and God bless. Bye.
God bless you too.
God bless.
Bye.